Welcome back to another video, guys. We are back out with the RX7 turbo project. It is a nice sunny hot Arizona summer day. My plan for this video is I want to get all of this metal cut off so that I can redo it, and also while it's off, that stuff goes in easier. So what I'm thinking is we'll start off by cutting all this metal off, and then I'm gonna get some measurements from all of the points that I might end up cutting off. I think I might partially tube the front of this car while we're here, so I need to get measurements so I know where all the bolt holes need to go. With that being said, we are gonna start cutting all this crappy stuff off so we can make new stuff, and so we can get the motor and trans in the car. The scrap metal is off to this stuff, where I will need to get the flywheel and or the flywheel and the clutch on here, and then we can slip the transmission on from there, get everything bolted together. Initially I made everything weld on, which was a terrible idea. So I think the best move for me is going to be to cut away everything, and that's what I was talking about earlier with getting some of the bolt holes figured out. Is I think the best move from here is going to be to just fully tube this front end. Since I already had to do this stuff, it's only a little bit more work to create this stuff, so I think that's the plan, that's the idea. So we're gonna see what we can figure out and go from there. But yeah, I think it's time to get all of that stuff mated up so that we can keep on moving. So I'm going to be using the ACT Z65-T or XTR6 clutch. It's rated to, if I remember correctly, I think 540 foot-pounds of torque, so it should be within the range of this motor setup. We are going to brake clean the mating surface on the flywheel and the mating surface on the pressure plate, because they will have an oil on them to keep them from rusting, but that oil is not good for the clutch. You can see there, that's what I mean. There's a good amount of oil on there, so it's good to take it off. Make sure there's nothing on there. As always, your alignment tool should slip in there. Everything is ready to go so that we can put this guy on that guy. Alright, so with everything being ready to go, trans being good, motor being good, I've got the engine hoist out, and I'm going to hoist up the motor, get this guy hanging, and then we'll get the trans hooked up, and then lift the trans and the motor off of the trans jack. Then I might set it down. I think for tonight, I am going to just get those done. So get the motor and the trans mounted and then to get it sat down for the night. Well, the do has been did. We have a 93 to 95 FC RX7 block mounted up to a 87, 86 to 88 Turbo 2 RX7 transmission. So, to give you guys a rundown of how to get these to work together with each other, when you're running the FC RX7 block, you are going to need what I did at least is I have the counterweight that's from an FC RX7 or from the Turbo 2 RX7. Apparently they're the same weights. We'll see when we start this to be 100% for sure, but from what I was able to find, they should be it's the right weight. And then I'm running a lightweight flywheel, so that's why the counterweight is needed. I'm not sure if you can use the stock Turbo 2 flywheel. That allows is the whole rotating assembly of the FD is still the FD rotating assembly. And then we have a lightweight flywheel which has the same diameter and same bolt pattern as a Turbo 2. So then I'm running the Turbo 2 push type clutch instead of the FD pull type clutch. So then running that, you can run the FC RX7 Turbo 2 transmission, FC RX7 factory clutch, and everything works together happily. So that's why I'm excited about this, is not just getting a motor mounted to a trans, but it's beyond that. Obviously this is one step closer to getting my Turbo RX7 finally that I've wanted so long, but also what this is for me is knowing that all of my research that I've done seems to be correct so far. All the research I did between the motor and trans and compatibility and all of that stuff seems to be correct. And as proof, we'll pop this guy in here and you can spin the motor over and there is no problems, no grinding, and nothing is stopping the transmission or the motor from spinning due to the transmission. This is FC RX7 chassis, which means the FC RX7 transmission and the FC RX7 motor mounts or transmission mount will bolt right in. With that all bolting in, that means that we know where the transmission is going to be front to back and where this axis here on the transmission is centered, because this will be centered. So what that means is I can make sure that this area is centered in the engine bay, and then all I have to do is level the motor. And when I level the motor, I know that everything is exactly where it needs to be. So when I make these mounts, I can know for sure that all of the angles are correct. My drive shaft U-joint angles are going to be correct, and everything is going to be happy. Nothing's going to be overstressed. I decided that I'm going to pause for a second on getting this guy figured out. And I think what I'm going to do instead is get all this wiring cleared out, and I think we're going to go ahead and get the front end chopped. That was something I was planning on doing, but I think it would be a better thing to do before the motor and trans go in, so that I'm not getting a bunch of metal dust and debris on that stuff. So we're gonna hold off on putting that in for the second, and we're gonna go ahead and get this guy chopped and tubed, at least these side pieces figured out. Even if I don't fully tube everything now, I think at least getting it cut and getting the majority of the dirty stuff done would be good, so that the motor and trans don't get covered in a bunch of metal. I have the motor fully sealed off, but just in case I didn't perfectly seal it off, I'd rather get some of the major cutting out of the way. So we're going to remove all of the wiring here to get it out of the way, and then we are going to cut up here and then get all of this chopped off and then recreate some mounts for the headlights. So we're going to do some wire moving and then some chopping. I would love to get rid of a lot of the wiring in here because I feel there's a lot of stuff that's not necessary, but unfortunately I don't know the exact plan for when the other motor goes back in this car and this turbo motor goes in the purple car. So Unfortunately for now, I think I'm going to keep all of this stuff in there. It's going to look cluttered and kind of nasty, but hopefully once the other motor goes in, I can get a plan and then clean everything up really well and make it look pretty. So all of the wiring is cleared back of anywhere that I'm going to be cutting, which is basically going to be here, down, and across. Same on this side. The only thing that I'm going to have to work around is going to be the brake lines, because I don't really want to disconnect them if I don't have to. So I unbolted these top bolts for the headlight covers on both sides. And my thought is that I'm going to leave the lower mounts of the headlights bolted in, so it keeps them relatively where they need to be. We're going to cut the top section first, and then probably cut this front of the wheel arch out, and then I'm going to get all of this removed so that I can start with plating and then running out here, knowing about where these are going to be. The other thing that we're going to do is I'm going to put a set of fenders on here so that when I cut this, the fenders will follow this arch here, so that I can have some sort of reference as to where the new tubes need to go. So I think we're pretty much ready. I'm gonna cut down here and then probably stop there and stop there, and then have to use a saw to get in there to cut behind this guy, but shouldn't be too hard. Same on this side. So we're gonna start with cutting this top section off and the front wheel arch off and this headlight upper section here, and then see how that goes, and then kind of work from there and see what we can do. We have the first chunk cut off, so nothing there. I wanted to give you guys basically a quick rundown of my plan and kind of explain to you why stuff is getting cut certain ways. So first of all, I left this pinch weld on here, and then I'll end up tacking all of this together, stitching it essentially. But basically this will give me a flange to be able to bolt to do some sort of fender cover here, or like wheel arch, basically recreate the front wheel arch. And then I have a secondary line here. So my plan is that I will actually end up cutting this part straight with the strut tower, and then cutting it in essentially right here, so that I can make a plate that fills in this whole area and then welds to this point of the strut tower. Then on the front side, you'll see I did not cut everything off from the headlight, and that is because the headlight has these two lower bolts. So what this allows me to do is cut this off, this portion here off, and then recreate, or not recreate, but build the first part of the tube front end that will go under here, and this tells me where that tube needs to be as far as height. So one thing I did last night that I didn't record, I went through and triangulated each one of the holes that I have to recreate. All right, we got the driver's side off, and now we're doing the cleanup work. So this first piece here, I'm making this nice and flat and straight. And then there's a little, this side doesn't have it, but on this side there's this little like bulge that comes out. So I had to cut that off, so I'll have to clean all this up. And then this is nice and flat. Well, the camera keeps dying. It's super hot out here, but in the meantime, I got this side pretty much prepped. That side's sort of prepped. This still needs the paint finish taken off to weld to, but I paused and I've been working on a template for this side, which I got pretty much ironed out. And I think that's gonna be the goal of what I go to. Follows this arch here, goes over, and then follows the top arch. And then I'll have to shave it down just a little bit so that it gives me a nice welding corner around here. But that is the concept that I'm going for. So got this guy cut out and finished. I got it transferred onto a piece of metal. Yesterday we ended up with getting all of this finished up, and then I got the driver's side plate done. So we have both of the plates ready to go, and I think it's time to get these guys tacked on. So I'm gonna start on this side. You can see I already got it all surface prepped, ready to go. So we're gonna get this side tacked in. Because there's a lot of weird shapes going on right here, it's gonna have to get tacked and then kind of hammered and massaged to follow all the curves. So basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start on this side, run some tacks around here, and then as it starts to try and pull off, I'll get it to lay against it with the hammer and slowly work everything around to get this whole thing welded in. But I got the whole space prepped and ready to go, so we're ready to go ahead and start tacking the first plate on. So we'll grab the old trusty welder, start putting some plates together so we can get this thing tubed. The first side is all tacked together. We got it all to lay nice and flat against everything. So basically this guy just needs to get welded out. Then we can jump on that side, prep it, and tack that side, get it to lay against it, and then full weld that side. Can I just say that welding outside when it's 117, 18 outside, not fun. But on the bright side, the plates are both welded in. We've got to smooth out the tops here so the fender sits flush on it. Because I'm running a MIG, I don't have as much control. If I could learn how to use a TIG, on a TIG welder, you can actually control your heat and your feed and stuff and be able to make a nice smooth weld. But we MIG these two together, so got a little bit of clearancing for the fenders, and then we will move on from there. So I'm gonna get these cleaned up real quick, and then next is gonna be getting our bars that go from here to here and then down. I may or may not have gotten a little carried away. As you can see, this whole area is done. So we've got our main bar here. I have the mount done for the headlight on the upper side, and then I also finished the mount on the other side. A little shot in there, and then we got this lower bar that this mount goes to. So now our headlight is fully mounted. Let's see if I can get this moved. We got that thing aligned perfectly. That is the way. I kept all of the templates from the passenger side. So this one is actually for this plate. This plate is not going to change at all whatsoever. So I just did this one while I did the first one. These guys are all of the attachment tabs for the headlights. There might be slight differences from side to side, so I decided to just keep all the templates, and then I can do slight adjustments. Nothing's ever going to be totally perfect, so I decided that I would keep the templates, but I wouldn't cut those things out yet until I knew that I could have that bar in, and then go from there and make any adjustments on these guys that I need to. So I got this guy about tacked where I want it to be. We're about sitting where I want it to be. So we're gonna see if we can get some tacks on it. Get it welded in. So now I'm just going through and doing final fit on the main headlight bracket and then tacking it, and then I'm going to go ahead and weld the whole thing through. Honestly, this fabrication work is my favorite part of working on cars, is actually kind of being at free will to design how I want and make stuff look how I want and be able to add stuff that something didn't come with or didn't have originally. It's definitely my favorite part, is all of the fabrication work. Well guys, there she is. That is not too shabby of a gap. So, we've got rear bolts on, which means the next step is going to be chopping all of the lower stuff on this guy so that we can make it look like that one. Well, I may or may not have had another period of work get away from me. I got this side done. I do apologize for not recording the rest of it, but we have the lower bar and the front mounting bracket all in. We still have to weld this guy. I ran out of wire on the welder, so this guy still needs to get a finished weld, but besides that, everything is done here. And we have a symmetrical, see if we can get you the shot here, a symmetrical front tube. I need to get the motor in because I need to see where it sits, and then I need to figure out how I want to do the V-mount setup, and then from there I can figure out how I want to do all these center bars and center supports. So with that being said, this is as much as I can do until the motor's in. So I think my next step is going to be getting everything in here cleaned up so that I can paint this, and then unfortunately I'm gonna have to push the motor install to the next video. Mainly I wanted to do all of this because all of this cutting ended up spraying, as you can see, a lot of metal, and this is the third time I've cleaned all the metal up, and you can see there's still just metal shavings everywhere. So I wanted to make sure that I at least got the majority of the cutting done so that anything that I had some weird angles or anything like that, I could get into the engine bay and easily be able to get over to it. I also ended up welding in all of the shock towers, so also having the engine out for that makes it a lot easier, especially getting back here where I'm basically standing in this hole and then welding the back side here. The majority of next video will be getting the motor and trans slipped in, mounting the transmission, getting the motor mounts done, and depending on how long that takes, if it doesn't take a long time, then I think I'll go ahead and pull the Turbo 2 diff that I have for this car out. We'll get that welded, and then we can pull the rear subframe, pull the rear diff, put the Turbo 2 welded diff in, and then be able to then connect the whole drivetrain once the front motor mounts are done. So I think that's the plan. I think that's what we're gonna go for. Mounting the engine, possibly welding the turbo diff in the next video, but for this video we are done. I'm very happy with how this came out. It came out nice and symmetrical. I appreciate you guys tagging along. If you want to support the channel, jump on the Etsy site. The link will be in the description. You can buy some merch, or if you're looking for some 3D printed RX7 or Miata parts, I have them on there too. It always helps the channel if you like, comment, subscribe. That helps more people see what I'm doing, and it helps me slowly make more videos. I appreciate everyone who watched this. Thanks for following along, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.